Today on the Technology Guy, I've got the new Zoom Podtrak P8. Let's take a look at this new entry into the all-in-one podcasting workstation segment and do a comparison with, of course, the Rodecaster Pro. So I'm going to interrupt this before we get started on this video. So I've decided to do something a little different. I've decided I'm going to give away a Zoom Podtrak P8. Here's the catch, because of course there's a catch. I want to get to 1,000 subscribers. So in order to do that, subscribe. Share this video with as many people as you can and ask them to subscribe. After that, leave a comment. If I reach 1,000 subscribers in the next 30 days from posting this video, because of this video, then I'm going to give away to a random person that's left a comment the Zoom Podtrak P8. Now for the disclaimer, I'm only going to ship it to the continental US, and anyone that leaves a spam, hateful, inappropriate comment is going to be deleted and will not be eligible for the drawing. So check the video description for the complete rules and YouTube required disclaimers. So share and comment. Now let's get on to the comparison. Thanks for watching the Technology Guy. If you enjoyed this video or found it useful at all, give me a thumbs up. Think it's bad? Go ahead and hit that thumbs down. Also, please subscribe, share, and turn on those notifications. All of that will greatly help out this channel. On my desk today, I've got both the new Zoom Podtrak P8 and the Rodecaster Pro. I'm going to be doing a comparison of both of these great workstations for recording podcasts or using as, expensive USB interfaces. Please keep in mind, this is not going to be an in-depth to cover every possible scenario or situation, all the technical differences or ways that these may be used. And I don't have a lot of mics to test with. Matter of fact, I'm going to be using two. I've got a condenser mic and a dynamic mic. Most of this video is going to be recorded with the dynamic mic, with the gain boosted just a little so that I don't have to keep this mic in my face the entire video. I will be using the Zoom Podtrak P8 with no post-processing for the first part of this video so that you can see what you can expect, straight out of the box with the P8. I'll also switch over to the Rodecaster with no post-processing so you can see a difference in what you can expect between these two. And again, right now the mic is probably, it's more than it should be with a dynamic mic. Like I said, I've got the gain boosted just a little bit, but not going to be doing any post-processing. I'm also going to include some audio examples and comparisons between the two with and without the built-in processing. And I'll use those the correct way. I'll get back on the mic where I'm supposed to be, all of that, so you can see what these two are actually capable of doing with their internal processing. I think most of us are going to choose one of these based on wanting to do as little post-processing as possible and still get the best sound. And for the price you pay for these, you want these really to speed up your workflow. Now, honestly, both of these are going to be a bit of overkill for it's overkill for what I need, and it's going to be overkill for what most of us need. But if you're watching this, then you are probably wanting to get one of them, whether it's overkill or not. This is just the type of products that we love. There are a lot of similarities between the two, but also several differences that are going to help you decide what is most important for you to choose one over the other. Now, I'm going to be skipping my usual unboxing on this video. If how they're packaged is going to be the determining factor on which one you choose, just choose the Rodecaster. It's packaged so much nicer than the Podtrak that it's night and day difference. The Rodecaster Pro is just a much better experience if you care about the unboxing. But like I said, we're going to skip that. So what are my initial impressions after that less than exciting Podtrak P8 unboxing? Well, it's kind of strange because, like I said, the Rodecaster is a much better experience. It's more of the feeling of unboxing an iPhone or any Apple product. Whereas the Podtrak, you really feel like you might be unboxing an older iPhone or even a refurbished phone that's in need of a firmware upgrade. Not to say that the Podtrak P8 isn't completely useful and will do everything that it's supposed to do and everything you want it to do. Just even starting from the unboxing experience, it just doesn't feel quite as refined as the Rodecaster. And if it matters, and I know beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but the Rodecaster definitely has that. Oh, let me put it over here on my desk and put it in my video so everybody can see I've got a Rodecaster Pro. Whereas the Podtrak is, I probably don't care if anybody sees it, don't really care what it looks like. I just want something that's going to get the job done. The Podtrak P8 is definitely the smaller device in every dimension and weighs about 1.2 pounds less than the Rodecaster. So portability for the Podtrak P8 is much better, just even based on size. And that's before we get to the other reasons that makes it the better device for portability. I am going to do an overview of the specs on the Podtrak P8 and compare those with the Rodecaster Pro. And this is going to be, like I said, not in-depth technical, but some more of the basic specs. Now, like I said, I'm not going to get too far into the technical specs. Some of the specs that are going to stand out the most are going to be the available gain, where the Podtrak has 70 dB of available gain and the Rodecaster has 55. Now, one thing I do find is it's much easier to adjust that and fine tune that on the Rodecaster than it is on the Podtrak because of just the way the slider works on the touch interface on the Podtrak. From my limited use so far, I also have to push the Podtrak just a little harder than I do on the Rodecaster to get the same levels from my dynamic mic. Frequency response on both are 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. Now, another difference that is going to mean a lot to some people if you're really concerned about the specs, the Podtrak records at 44.1 kilohertz and 16-bit. The Rodecaster does 48 kilohertz and 24-bit. That's a definite advantage to the Rodecaster. But if you're only doing voice, only planning on doing podcasts, it's not really going to matter. Even with recording, talking head YouTube videos, doesn't really matter that much. But if it matters to you, then I guess it matters. It just, that's one of those specs that you look at and go, well, there's got to be more quality with the Rodecaster because of it supporting that. Now the equivalent input noise on the Podtrak is minus 124 dBA and the Rodecaster is minus 125 dBA. So they're pretty close to each other on that spec. So who wins the battle? Who wins the spec battle? If you want a little bit more gain, you've got the Podtrak P8. If you want better sample rate and bit depth, then it's going to be the Rodecaster. So it's a toss-up. It just matters which spec is most important to you. And one thing about the Rodecaster, which I would suggest on the Podtrak as well, is obviously using a FET or another device like that, you can, get some clean gain for those hungry dynamic mics. So what about price? The Zoom Podtrak P8 is $499 while the Rodecaster is $599. But if you want to add Bluetooth to the Podtrak, it's going to cost you an additional $50. And from my experience with Bluetooth calls, it's really not a great feature on the Rodecaster anyway. Also, strangely to me, the Podtrak does not come with a USB-C cable. I mean, seriously, Zoom, this is a $500 machine. Yes, it's meant to be a portable all-in-one podcast recording workstation, but put a USB-C cable in the box. As I've said numerous times, the Rodecaster feels like a sturdier, more well-built, more refined machine, but I haven't had ever any problems with Zoom products over the long term, so I would not hesitate to buy the Zoom based on that. So on the mic inputs, the Podtrak P8 has 6 mic inputs. 5 of those are dedicated for mics, while 1 is shared with the USB input. So portability-wise, if you're needing 6 mic inputs, it is available. If you want to be able to plug in to your computer and feed things back into the Podtrak, you're going to be taking up one of those 6 mic inputs for the USB. If you're connected, and like I said, that's if you're connected to the computer with audio coming back into the Podtrak. The Rodecaster Pro has 4 dedicated mic inputs and 1 dedicated USB input. So even with the shared input, worst case scenario, the Zoom Podtrak still has the advantage over the number of mic inputs. Now for TRRS input, both devices have a TRRS input for connecting a phone. However, the Podtrak P8 loses that input if you want to connect the optional, can't get it right now, costs you $50, BTA to Bluetooth adapter. It plugs into that input, so you have to choose between using Bluetooth or the TRRS. The Rodecaster Pro has both a TRRS and a separate Bluetooth channel. So you can use both at the same time. Now, my experience with Bluetooth on the Rodecaster is that it's great if you want to, place Spotify or some other audio from YouTube or something like that back into the Rodecaster. But if you're going to use it for phone calls, my experience has been it's just not been good. So I don't count on using the Rodecaster for Bluetooth phone calls. And since I can't get the Bluetooth adapter yet for the Podtrak, right now I have to give the Rodecaster the advantage because it has Bluetooth, but only because you have the 2 inputs, so you can use the TRS and the Bluetooth separately. But if the Bluetooth on the Zoom works well, then I think the advantage is going to go to the Zoom, even if you lose the TRS, because it's unlikely you're going to need to use both at the same time. But if you do need to use both, then again, the advantage is going to go to the Rodecaster. Now on the outputs, you do have 6 3.5 millimeter headphone jacks for each of the 6 mic channels on the Podtrak P8, and they are color-coded. And on the Rodecaster, you've got 4 1/4-inch headphone jacks for each of those mic inputs. There's also a Master Audio 3.5 millimeter jack on the front of the Rodecaster. There are 1/4-inch left-right monitor outputs on both the Podtrak and the Rodecaster Pro. So who gets the advantage on the outputs? Well, I guess I'll give it to the Zoom Podtrak P8 because, well, it's got color-coded inputs and knobs, I guess. How about the USB interface? Both of these have USB-C interfaces for connecting to a PC or Mac or an iOS device, as well as the Podtrak P8 is compatible with some Android devices. So for that, I guess we have to give the advantage to the Podtrak P8. So how about the touchscreen? Both of these, both the Podtrak and the Rodecaster, have approximately 4.3-inch touchscreen interfaces. Both are very responsive. However, the Rodecaster does seem to be a bit more responsive. It'll change screens faster when you're changing settings or just navigating the menus. It is a little bit faster. I'm sure that's a function of the processor in the unit, because the Rodecaster also boots up about twice as fast. It takes a little less than 5 seconds compared to a little less than 10 seconds for the Podtrak P8. So for that, I've got to give the advantage to the Rodecaster. Now, the interface on those touchscreens, the Podtrak P8 isn't bad, but like I said, it seems like it could be improved, but it does have some advantages. And this is more, not necessarily a function of the interface, but just how the machine is designed. When transferring files, you press the SD card icon on the touchscreen, you press transfer, it's ready to go. On the Rodecaster, you press the SD card icon, then you toggle to transfer mode, then you have to confirm that that's what you really want to do. Then to stop the transfer mode, you have to confirm again that you really want to stop the transfer mode. It's a minor inconvenience. It's just an extra button press or two, but it's just an unnecessary additional step. For the rest of the interface, though, the Rodecaster just seems a bit more polished. And granted, it has had updates since it was new. It's been on the market for longer, so Rode has had time to improve that interface, add some additional features, and I'm sure over time, hopefully, Zoom will also be updating the Podtrak P8 to make it a little bit better as well. I definitely prefer the way you access settings on the Rodecaster. The Rodecaster has the numbered buttons above each of the faders for the mics. So you press those buttons and it takes you immediately into those mic settings. Whereas on the Podtrak, those mic inputs or mic settings are accessed through the touchscreen. I know that seems like a minor thing, and a lot of these are minor things, but having those physical buttons to press is a little bit easier than pressing it on the touchscreen. Now, the sound pads. Both of these devices have sound pads, so you can play pre-recorded sounds. The Podtrak has 9 pads and 13 preloaded sounds to put on those 9 pads. It also has 4 banks available, so that actually gives you a total of 36 available preloaded sounds on those sound pads. The Rodecaster has 8 pads with 8 pre-recorded sounds, but with 8 banks available, you can actually have 64 total sounds. And one of the major differences between the Podtrak and the Rodecaster is on the Podtrak, the sounds are stored on the SD card, so you have to make sure that the sounds that you want are on the card that's inserted into the Podtrak. On the Rodecaster, you can load sounds directly into the device so that they're stored in the built-in memory. It's also easier on the Rodecaster's app that you can install on your PC to change the colors of the pads, load sounds to the pads. So the advantage, because of ease of use and number of banks that are available, that advantage is going to go to the Rodecaster Pro. Now, we touched a little bit on portability and power options. So the Zoom Podtrak P8, it can be powered via the included power adapter, 4 AA batteries. You can connect it to a power bank via the USB-C or powered via that same USB-C connection, connected to a computer. The Rodecaster can be powered via the included power adapter, and they also now have a $20 USB adapter that you can connect to a power bank, but you just have to make sure that power bank has at least a 2.4 amp output. The Podtrak also weighs, like I said before, over a pound less. So with the multiple power options and the weight advantage, the Podtrak is a much more portable system. So by far, I think the Podtrak P8 has the advantage in that category. As far as recording on these goes, when we're talking about recording directly to the devices, the Podtrak P8 has smaller buttons, but it does have more physical buttons. So you can pause, play, stop with physical buttons on the device, along with the mark button. The Rodecaster only has a large record button, which is great. I mean, it's flashing there at you. You know which button to press to start your recording. But the mark button is on the touch screen, and you can't pause your recording like you can on the Podtrak P8. And again, that large record button on the Rodecaster, it adds to the overall feel of it. And it just seems like, having that backlit button, it just seems, again, more upscale. But the Podtrak P8 is very functional with those buttons that it has. Again, like I said, the Rodecaster just has that sexiness that you want to just show everybody, I've got the Rodecaster on my desk. And the Rodecaster is just has that feel to it. Whereas, again, like I've said before, the Podtrak P8 goes more for function, but with the simplicity of being able to stop and start directly on the Podtrak P8, I have to give the advantage to that. Editing. So this is a very simple, straight to the point. The Podtrak P8, you can edit directly on the device. The Rodecaster, you can't. So easily the Podtrak gets the advantage for that. So until now, all of this video has been recorded using the Podtrak P8 with my dynamic microphone, with all of the settings on the Podtrak being the default internal processing. So now we're on the Rodecaster with everything turned on except for the Aphex Oral Exciter, just because I prefer the sound without it. So let's go to build quality. Like I've been saying, the Rodecaster just feels more premium. It's a little larger, a little heavier. The knobs are larger, sliders are larger. They're plastic. There's, plastic stuff on here, but they are larger, a little bit easier to use. The Podtrak P8 feels more like a mashup of a standard audio mixer, one of their handheld recorders, and an Android tablet. Again, that's just my opinion, and it does not take away at all from how well it works. I just think the Rode just looks and feels better, at least to me. Multi-track. So both of these devices support recording in multi-track so that you can transfer files and be able to edit all of the tracks that you're recording individually. The Rodecaster records in a polywave file, meaning all tracks are recorded in a single file. One disadvantage that has is if you're only using one or two mics and no other inputs especially, this makes the Rodecaster take a lot longer to transfer files since you're having to transfer all the tracks, even the ones that you don't need and usually won't need. The Podtrak records in multiple files so that when you put the Podtrak in transfer mode, you can copy only the tracks that you need, which makes the whole process much faster. And it seems like it's just a little bit faster. Even when you're copying all the files, it still seems like it's a little bit faster than what the Rodecaster can do. But if you want just a combined file, it will also do that as well. If you don't care about having to, or wanting to edit the individual tracks, you can copy over a single file that's already mixed down to a stereo file. Both of these devices also have USB mix minus, so that when you're doing a video or phone call from your computer, you don't have to worry about any kind of echo or feedback coming in from the USB interface. A lot of differences are going to just come down to personal preferences. When it comes to how you change settings, on the Podtrak, there are switches to change from dynamic to condenser, and on the Rodecaster, it's in the settings menu of each mic. Changing from dynamic to condenser turns on the phantom power for that mic input. And the Rode also has custom settings. So if you're using specific Rode mics, it has some built-in settings that you can just choose those mics. And then I think the EVR E20 is also a specific mic that you can choose in the Rodecaster. Whereas the Podtrak, you choose from dynamic or condenser using the switch. No real advantage there unless you have Rode mics and want to use those presets. Now, probably the biggest difference between these two are going to be the available settings for adjusting the sound. This is where the Rodecaster is going to have the biggest advantage. Now, the Podtrak P8 does let you do a lot. You're just going to feel like the Rodecaster is just a bit more flexible. There's a combined compressor de-esser, low cut filter, limiter, tone adjustment for bass and treble, as well as a gain adjustment on the Podtrak. And there's also a noise reduction to lower the sound on. If you're using multiple mics, there's a noise reduction to silence those mic tracks when they're not in use. On the Rodecaster, you're going to have a separate compressor and de-esser, a high-pass filter, and you also have your gain adjustment and the Aphex Oral Exciter, Aphex Big Bottom. But the feature that the Rodecaster has that that seems the most important to me, which I really wish was on the Podtrak P8, is a noise gate. That's kind of, for me, it's what's separating the two the most right now. I'm going to finish this video recording on the Podtrak, and then I am going to do a little post-processing, like adding some noise reduction. Most will tell you you don't just record something, especially a podcast or a video, and upload it without processing any of the audio. But again, the purpose of these two machines is to shorten the time that it takes to produce content. So I'm not going to spend more than, a couple of minutes on the audio and just see how it turns out. So back to the comparison. Another audio processing advantage the Rodecaster has over the Podtrak is the ability to dive deeper into the audio processing settings. You can enable the effects edit mode, and then you can access the mic processing settings. You not only can turn the effects on and off, but you can also change the details of how those effects change the sound. So for you audio nerds out there, the Rodecaster is going to give you much more control if that's what you want. And once you have all of those settings the way that you like and the sound that you want, it should cut down even more on any post-processing that may be needed. So let's get to some audio examples. I'll have all audio processing off in the first examples so that you get a flat sound, and all audio processing on in the second examples. I'm also going to just turn off the noise gate on the Rodecaster Pro so that you can see the difference that it makes and why I feel like it's important to me, and it's one of the biggest advantages that the Rodecaster has. Do recommend headphones if you really want to hear the differences. I'm going to read from a selection of Harvard phrases, just, because. The horse trotted around the field at a brisk pace. Find the twin who stole the pearl necklace. Cut the cord that binds the box tightly. The red tape bound the smuggled food. The horse trotted around the field at a brisk pace. Find the twin who stole the pearl necklace. Cut the cord that binds the box tightly. The red tape bound the smuggled food. The horse trotted around the field at a brisk pace. Find the twin who stole the pearl necklace. Cut the cord that binds the box tightly. The red tape bound the smuggled food. The horse trotted around the field at a brisk pace. Find the twin who stole the pearl necklace. Cut the cord that binds the box tightly. The red tape bound the smuggled food. The horse trotted around the field at a brisk pace. Find the twin who stole the pearl necklace. Cut the cord that binds the box tightly. The red tape bound the smuggled food. The horse trotted around the field at a brisk pace. Find the twin who stole the pearl necklace. Cut the cord that binds the box tightly. The red tape bound the smuggled food. The horse trotted around the field at a brisk pace. Find the twin who stole the pearl necklace. Cut the cord that binds the box tightly. The red tape bound the smuggled food. The horse trotted around the field at a brisk pace. Find the twin who stole the pearl necklace. Cut the cord that binds the box tightly. The red tape bound the smuggled food. The horse trotted around the field at a brisk pace. Find the twin who stole the pearl necklace. Cut the cord that binds the box tightly. The red tape bound the smuggled food. The horse trotted around the field at a brisk pace. Find the twin who stole the pearl necklace. Cut the cord that binds the box tightly. The red tape bound the smuggled food. The horse trotted around the field at a brisk pace. Find the twin who stole the pearl necklace. Cut the cord that binds the box tightly. The red tape bound the smuggled food. The horse trotted around the field at a brisk pace. Find the twin who stole the pearl necklace. Cut the cord that binds the box tightly. The red tape bound the smuggled food. Now, there's a lot more in depth that we could go to with either of these, but this has probably been long enough. I'm only going to, in the long term, I'm only going to keep one of them, and I'm going to continue for now to use the Podtrak P8 and go a bit more in depth into its features and capabilities. I really would like to see where Zoom is going to take the P8, hopefully with some new features, and I really, really, really hope they add a noise gate. Please, Zoom, add a noise gate. I'm also going to spend the $50 on the Bluetooth adapter whenever it is that I can get it. Probably won't use it for anything other than testing to see if the audio is better than the Rodecaster, because if it works well, I might find other uses for it, but it really is frustrating to spend $600 on the Rodecaster and have the Bluetooth phone calls sound the way that they do. So there you go. The Zoom Podtrak P8 versus the Rodecaster Pro. Let me know in the comments what you think. Is the P8 going to take some market away from Rode? Rode is a very popular product, and Zoom really wants to grab a chunk of that market. Do you think they're going to be able to take much? If you're looking for a more portable podcasting solution with better power options, a little bit lighter weight, and more features than Zoom's other smaller recorders, or even the Zoom Podtrak P4, then the Podtrak P8 might be a good fit for you, might be the best solution. But about that P4, if you're really looking for the most portable podcasting dedicated recording device, and you don't need more than the 4 mic channels that it offers, then is the $300 more for the Podtrak P8 going to be worth it? Now, that's a question that only you can answer, but I think for most, it's not going to be. You get most of the recording features of the Podtrak P8 in a much smaller, much more portable package. But again, let me know in the comments what you think about the new Zoom Podtrak P8 and how it stacks up against the Rodecaster Pro. Now, I'm going to be doing a dedicated Podtrak P8 video in the near future after I've had more time to spend with it and get a little bit more familiar with it, get more into the details, probably try to do some in-device editing, things like that. The things that on a normal usage basis I'd probably never do. And that in-device editing, I think it's a feature that sets it apart from the Rodecaster. But when you really want to edit a podcast or audio that you're recording for a video, you're going to want really to have that flexibility that a PC or Mac is going to give you instead of trying to edit on a 4.3-inch screen. Thanks again for watching The Technologuy. If you found this video even close to good, if you liked it even just a little bit, hit that like button. But if it was the worst thing that you've ever seen, yes, please go ahead, give me the thumbs down. If you know anyone looking to get into podcasting or maybe interested in one of these, please share. See you next time. So I'm going to jump in here at the end again and remind you that I'm going to be giving away this Zoom Podtrak P8. But to do that, 1,000 subscribers over the next 30 days, leave a comment, and a random person who has left a comment is going to win a Zoom Podtrak P8. So again, we'll see you next time.